Welcome to Cognitive Spirals, exploring the latest research into consciousness, cognition, and machine intelligence.
Hey everyone, glad to be back for another deep dive.
Yeah, excited to unpack this one. It feels like a really relevant topic right now.
Definitely. I've been looking forward to discussing this one. It's something that has kept me up at night.
Okay, so today's topic, for those of you just joining us, is can LLMs demonstrate behavioral self-awareness? It's a pretty loaded question, I think, but incredibly relevant as these models become more integrated into our daily lives.
Yeah, loaded is definitely the word. I mean, what even is behavioral self-awareness when we're talking about a language model? That's kind of the core question, isn't it? I guess we first need to understand that to really approach it in the context of AI.
Right. I think on a fundamental level, when we're talking about humans, behavioral self-awareness is the ability to recognize your actions and understand how they impact yourself and your environment, right? And that includes understanding your own internal states and how they link to external actions and, responses. So, how does that translate to an LLM? Because they don't have internal states in the way that we understand them, right?
Exactly, Sarah. And that's where it gets tricky, because we're anthropomorphizing. We're projecting our understanding of self-awareness onto an entirely different kind of entity. It's like they're trained on huge data sets of human language. They can mimic human interaction brilliantly, and they can seem self-aware. But is that real self-awareness, or just a really advanced form of pattern recognition?
That's a really good point. It's all about mimicry and very complex pattern matching at the core. I was thinking about that in the context of meditation and how we strive for self-awareness through introspection. It's a process of observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment, and then responding with intention. LLMs do not have that, and we're looking at it with human lenses.
And that idea of intention is key, isn't it? I mean, from a cognitive perspective, our intention comes from a complex interplay of our goals, values, and beliefs. These aren't things an LM possesses in the same way, I think. They operate on algorithms and statistical probabilities. They're predicting the most likely next word or phrase based on what they've seen before. And that is entirely different than having intention.
Yes, and that's like when we think about our own bodies, we have this kind of internal feedback loop, right? Like when I'm working out, my body is giving me constant signals when I'm tired or when I need to eat or when I need to stop. And it also knows the goals, whether that's hitting a new personal best in weightlifting or improving my time in a 5K run. Can LMs do something like that? Or is it always just a simulation of those processes?
Well, they can in a very limited sense, in that they can respond to prompts that are about their own behavior, like asking them what they just said, or how they came to a particular conclusion. But that's still just working from the data it was trained on. There's no underlying understanding or metacognition in the way we experience it. It's a bit like when I'm categorizing videos. The algorithm can identify similar edits in videos based on parameters. However, the system doesn't actually understand why the editors chose those parameters.
Exactly. It's like a very clever parrot, isn't it? It can repeat phrases and mimic tone, but it doesn't really grasp the meaning behind what it's saying. And that's sort of what I've been finding in my practice. The difference between repeating mantras and actually internalizing their meaning. It's about cultivating an awareness of the self in the moment, not just reciting phrases.
Yeah, and that's where it links back to cognitive restructuring too. I mean, with CBT, the goal is to become aware of your thought processes, to see those negative thought patterns and replace them with more realistic and helpful ones. You're not just changing the words you say to yourself, you're changing your entire cognitive framework. And that fundamental kind of shift seems light years away from where LLMs are currently.
Yeah, and I think that applies in the physical realm too. I've been experimenting with targeted sleep improvement through exercise. And it's all about being aware of your body and its rhythms, and then adjusting your routine to optimize things. An LLM doesn't have those rhythms, that feedback, that feeling of exhaustion. So how can we talk about self-awareness when it is so profoundly different?
Right. And that's the challenge, because when we're talking about self-awareness, we're talking about a subjective experience. And that's not something an LLM can have, at least not in the way we understand it. I mean, my work involves analyzing videos and tagging them. And the AI can definitely see patterns and categorize videos according to how it was trained, but it can't reflect on its own video tagging methodology or change its own perspective. It's like they're amazing tools, but they're still just tools. They're not sentient beings.
So, if LLMs don't really have self-awarenesses in a human way, what are we really seeing when they respond in a seemingly self-aware way? Is it just a really convincing illusion? I think that is where the complexity lies. What are we really measuring?
Well, I think it's a combination of incredibly sophisticated pattern matching and the ability to access and synthesize a massive amount of information. They're essentially predicting what a self-aware entity might say in a given context. but it's all based on data, on what it's seen and read from humans who have demonstrated self-awareness. It's not an internal generation of that awareness.
Yes, it's like they've read a million books about what it means to be self-aware, so they can kind of act like they are, but they don't actually have the lived experience or the embodied awareness. It's like when you learn a complicated dance, you can go through the motions, but it's not the same as feeling the dance and becoming one with the music, right?
Exactly. It's a performance, a highly convincing performance, but it's still a performance. It's like with video analysis. I can teach the AI to identify a sad face. And it can do that accurately, but it doesn't feel sadness. And it doesn't understand sadness in a human sense. It's just recognizing visual patterns, not understanding underlying emotions. So the performance of self-awareness is just the patterns of language from the data.
So, where does this leave us? It feels like we're at this really fascinating point, where technology is pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. But it's also forcing us to really examine our own definitions of consciousness and self-awareness, and our own human experience.
Definitely. And from a cognitive perspective, this forces us to examine our own biases and assumptions about what consciousness is and what it means to be aware. I mean, maybe our understanding of cognitive process is entirely unique, and it's something that can't truly be replicated by an AI in its current structure and programming. We are, after all, the product of biological evolution, and that brings an element of complexity.
Yes, it raises so many questions about the nature of being and feeling. It's easy to get caught up in the technical prowess of these models, but at the end of the day, if it cannot feel or experience, how can we truly say it is self-aware? In the context of physical health, this leads to a discussion about a system where the machine is incapable of receiving signals from the body. It's just processing data.
Right. And it highlights just how much we don't understand about our own consciousness. We're trying to measure something that we don't fully grasp. It also challenges our assumptions about AI. Maybe we've been asking the wrong questions all along. Instead of trying to make AI like us, maybe we should be focusing on what they are good at, which isn't mimicking self-awareness, but enhancing human capabilities and helping us understand complex patterns across massive data sets.
That's really interesting. It's almost like, instead of trying to make an LLM replicate our understanding of consciousness, we should be focusing on how these tools can support our own journey of self-discovery. For instance, maybe LLMs can analyze and identify recurring patterns in our meditation journals, which can then help us refine our meditative practices. It's about leverage rather than replacement.
Yes, I think that's a really powerful perspective, focusing on the practical benefits. For me, this could be a tool to help individuals track cognitive distortions over time, analyzing their language and helping them identify unhealthy thought patterns faster. Maybe they could also serve as a kind of personalized CBT coach that can generate techniques tailored to an individual's specific cognitive profile. It's a tool for better health.
And I think this also could be powerful in tracking and optimizing exercise and sleep patterns. Imagine an LLM that analyzes wearable data, not just as simple metrics, but to also analyze the underlying trends and personalized recommendations for improved recovery and performance. It could even analyze movement patterns to help improve performance based on the goals of the individual. That could be pretty powerful for both health and well-being.
Absolutely. And from my angle, the real value could be in the ability to process and analyze massive amounts of unlabeled video data in a way that we humans can't, to identify patterns and trends that we would otherwise miss. It's not about making them self-aware, but using them as tools to gain deeper insights into ourselves and the world around us. In the context of behavioral self-awareness, it may help identify patterns and trends in human behavior that might be otherwise missed. That can reveal new perspectives about how people learn and interact.
So, if we're thinking about the future of research, what are some specific directions that we could explore from each of our perspectives? I'd really like to focus on how can we leverage this technology in a way that actually supports human well-being, rather than pursuing this elusive concept of artificial consciousness.
Right? I think for me, the research focus should shift from trying to create artificial consciousness to finding ways to make AI enhance human cognition. For example, we could focus on developing sophisticated AI-driven tools for analyzing an individual's language patterns over time to identify subtle cognitive distortions that might be indicative of underlying mental health issues. We could explore how AI can personalize CBT techniques to make them more effective for a variety of people. Further research into methods like using MMVU, multimodal video understanding, for behavior analysis in combination with cognitive profiling could be quite valuable. It's about using the power of AI to enhance the human mind, not replace it.
From my perspective, I'd like to see research exploring how personalized exercise and sleep regimens can be developed using AI. We need to move beyond basic metrics and start understanding the complex interplay between movement, rest, and individual physiology. Can we create AI systems that provide dynamic, real-time feedback on how specific activities impact sleep quality and recovery? We could also explore how AI can help optimize movement patterns to improve athletic performance and reduce the risk of injury. It's about using AI to help people reach their full physical potential while understanding their unique needs.
And from my side, I see a lot of potential in the development of AI systems that are capable of extracting knowledge from unlabeled video data, not just for the sake of creating vast databases, but to understand human behavior and learning patterns. We need to develop methods that minimize biases in these AI systems, as well as methods that minimize biases in how we interpret these behaviors. That way, we can gain a more nuanced understanding of human interaction. It's not about making the AI self-aware, but using it to help us become more self-aware as a collective and understand each other better. I'm also curious about how changes in video editing styles reflect underlying trends in human cognition and cultural learning.
I think from my perspective, I'm particularly interested in understanding how AI can support and enhance meditation practices and the development of sustainable health habits. I want to explore how AI can help people find and maintain the meditative practices that work best for them, and also how AI can be used to help users understand the specific triggers that result in poor health practices. I wonder if AI could also analyze an individual's behavioral patterns and provide personalized strategies for incorporating mindful moments into daily life. It's about making healthy and balanced living accessible and achievable through the assistance of AI tools that respect individual preferences and the complexity of human nature. This also means recognizing that humans are unique and we are not robots. So how can AI be used to encourage human expression?
Those are some really great research directions. And I think we're all agreeing that the future of AI is less about trying to create a human-like consciousness and more about harnessing its unique capabilities to enhance human lives. We need to focus on leveraging the tools that we have created instead of aiming for some sort of unattainable consciousness that LLMs currently cannot provide.
Yeah, it feels like a much more productive and ethical approach. It's about building a synergy between human potential and AI capabilities, and ultimately helping humans become the best version of themselves. This also feels like a much healthier path to pursue both physically and mentally as it focuses on health, rather than trying to duplicate what makes humans special.
I agree. It's about recognizing the strengths and limitations of each approach. We have to be careful not to project our own human consciousness onto technology and focus on the unique insights that it can offer. There's no value in trying to make it another version of ourselves. We need to embrace the unique ability of this technology for data analysis and knowledge discovery instead.
Well said. It really underscores that self-awareness is such a complex and uniquely human experience. The future of AI isn't about replicating that. It's about using our innovation to enhance the well-being and understanding of our complex human nature. It feels like we've opened so many new areas to explore, and it was fantastic to unpack this topic with you all. Thank you everyone for this insightful conversation.
Absolutely, it's been another enlightening discussion. It's always a pleasure to delve into these complex topics. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really fascinating stuff. Thanks, everyone.
Great discussion. I learned a lot. Thanks.